We have a quorum. Can we have a motion to approve the minutes of October 11th, 2010?
Motion to approve. Second.
Any corrections, deletion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next item is A1, request to approve City of Evanston payroll through October 10th, 2010 for $2,190,186.29. Can we have a motion?
Motion to approve. Second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next item is City of Evanston bills through October 26th, 2010 for $1,892,444.58. Can we have a motion?
Motion to approve. Second.
Okay, questions? Yes, Alderman Rainey. Yes, yes, absolutely.
But I will
Extensive.
point out the very first question on here that I submitted at least on the connections for the homeless funds.
Yes.
The reason I did that is because the reason I made this request is because on this week's bills list, it's over $50,000, and we do these pass-throughs every month. It's not like this month is more than other months. It's always this way. And if you will recall, at Community Development Block Grant hearing last Tuesday night, or the Tuesday before, I'm not sure when, I think it was last Tuesday night. We had Paul Selden before us regarding Entry Point. And at that time, an Entry Point gets their money from Connections for the Homeless. They're very connected. And I asked about help for a person through Entry Point who is a chronic violator and sleeps at the bus shelter at CVS at Howard and Asbury and on the Parkway across the street from the 1100 block of Brummel. In each case, the police have been called, and the police have advised on Brummel, the resident, and at CVS that, there's really not much we can do. There's no services, staffing is short, blah, 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 blah. We asked Paul Selden, what can he do? This Entry Point's job in the past has been to scoop people up in the night, take them someplace where it's warm, at least intervene in every way possible. And he stood right here, and he said, in really a rather arrogant tone, if you recall, because I think you called him out on this, that they just don't have any money for this kind of thing. And I maintain if none of this $50,000 every month can be diverted to help a person like this, or, for example, the person in the newspaper this week, the crossing guard, who has 3 jobs, right, who is going to be evicted.
By the way, it's my niece who's been leading the charge, Gabrielle.
Excellent. Will do anything to help this woman. If there's no money for these kinds of cases, then, and if he's not able to direct some of this money to these kind of cases, then I think we ought to sit down with our legislators and tell them that, is this money all going for administration? I mean, it's going for, I guess some FIT money, but tonight FIT money is coming from our funds, the old mayor's program funds. So I just feel like we have absolutely nothing to say about where all this money is going, yet we write the check every month.
Yeah, you're correct.
And so I'm just very frustrated.
So are you suggesting that
I'm suggesting we get a conference, a workshop, something with Connections so they can tell us what the heck they're doing with all this money.
I agree.
This doesn't even cover the money we give them, from the city and other, I don't know. But the public should know that homeless the homeless shelter is receiving at least $50,000 a month from the feds for use in homeless programs, yet we continue to see the problem just escalating.
Right. I think one of the things, too, that came out of the discussion when he presented is that entry point is open until 4 o'clock, and beyond that time, you get a voicemail. And at the time you questioned that, he said, well, you want it open, then give us more money.
Yeah, yeah. I
So
don't have
then, you're right, the question is, you know, what's going on? What are we doing? Then I would, you know, suggest that we ask this gentleman to come and before the committee to answer some specific questions so that we get clear as to what's going on with that. Yes, Alderman Holmes.
Alderman Jean-Baptiste, I think that probably a first question is the types of money that's being received, because I believe that this money is for the homeless, the rapid, I was trying to find, I'm sorry.
It's rapid
rehousing.
rehousing.
Right, and they would not be eligible for that, but there are other dollars as well, and maybe it's just that we need a better understanding of the monies, all of the monies that's being received and how those can be used to see if, in fact, there is some avenue for the chronically homeless, like the street people.
Well, I mean, the lady in the paper is not chronically homeless, you know. True. But it goes further than that. I realize that these monies are categorized for certain uses. But Connections is a very mature, sophisticated organization, and nobody's sharper than Paul Selden, and you can see by all the money he gets. So it seems to me that there can be some negotiation on his part and some interaction, a way to use some of this money in other ways where it's so desperately needed. Maybe his argument would be, well, we didn't get money for that kind of thing. Well, let's look at some of the money we did get and figure out how we can use it. Be creative. That's what I'm asking. That's what I'm asking.
Right.
Because
So-
it is an absolute crime to read a story that your niece or whoever is working on, that, I mean, just an absolute crime. When here tonight we have a fit case that can't even touch this case, so.
Yep.
And I realize there's page after page of explanation in here, which I don't know how I could possibly read
Right.
it.
And I don't know whether, is Ms. Elisa Dean, are you here for this particular issue? Well, can you come up, please, for a minute?
Good evening, Elisa Dean, Community Intervention Services.
Yeah, you realize the issue, right?
Yes.
That there's a concern as to how the money is being allocated to assist the homeless. And the issue was raised as to why entry point could not accommodate homeless folks after 4 o'clock, and we were told that there was no money. What do you know about this particular matter, and how is it that we might be able to
The HPRP
shift some money?
funds
Go ahead.
are allocated to provide residents with rental assistance, security deposits, utility, moving expenses, and finding housing. These funds are not allocated for the chronically homeless, those that are sleeping on the benches. This money is not for that particular population. Entry Point receives their money, have received their money in the past, I believe, from the Community Block Grant. And that's how they were able to go out and go to the different sites where there were homeless people sleeping on the bench, collecting them, taking them into the shelter, giving them whatever daily supplies they needed to, get themselves together. So these are two different particular funds, and one's not used for the other.
Any questions for Ms. Dean? No?
I mean, you don't work for them, so I can't expect you to get into the nitty-gritty, so you're one of us.
All right, so then
Glad
we'll
you know that.
ask Mr. Paul Selden to come to a meeting and see if we can, have a conversation. All right, there are other items on the bill's list. Yes, Alderman.
I asked the question about, first, let me go back. We have a Leadership Evanston expenditure of $1,000.
Yes.
I've been arguing that the taxpayers in the city of Evanston have no business paying for our employees to go to Leadership Evanston. I encourage our employees, like employees in other organizations, to go to Leadership Evanston. But the taxpayers shouldn't pay for it. And this month, I see that this season, we're sending Tanya Noble to Leadership Evanston. I have been at meetings where, I see here comes the city manager to correct me, but let me just continue in case I'm even a little bit right. I have been at meetings where Tanya Noble comes to the meeting and explains to us about the community. So I'm not sure why we're paying to have her go. I think Tanya Noble should be teaching at Leadership Evanston.
Is that her teaching fee that is being paid for?
But before you answer, it's the concept also, not just that there's no reason for Tanya Noble to be there, but that any employee should be paid to go unless you have found a foundation that's paying for our people to go.
Alderman John Baptiste, Alderman Rainey, members of the committee. This has been an issue before you, before Alderman Rainey has raised this issue in the past. 2 years ago, the city of Evanston paid for 6 employees to attend Leadership Evanston. Last year, there were 2 employees, and I committed to the council a year ago, I believe at the bills list discussion, that we would go from 2 to 1. And working with Chief Eddington, it's been his feeling, and the chief is here and can help support that it makes sense to have members of our problem-solving team go through that program. It offers a lot about the community, and admittedly, our problem-solving folks know a good bit about the city of Evanston, but it's been beneficial to the others that have gone through it. I agree that in these difficult times, it's difficult to justify any more than 1 employee, but I think as part of our overall member responsibility as an employer and a member of the community, that I believe 1 is fine. And if the council wishes to have an additional discussion in the future, we should go from 1 to 0, we'd be happy to have that discussion.
We have, I couldn't disagree with you more. I think it is a huge waste of money. It takes, there are condominiums in this town that pay $1,000 for property taxes to the city, just $1,000. So it takes one whole household to send our problem-solving team member there. I think Paul Gottschalk went one year. I just can't believe people who have been immersed in the city of Evanston for years and years and years being selected to go. If you want to take, I'm not going to go on. I think that the council is irresponsible in sending people to this. I don't think it would be irresponsible for us to let somebody go if they wanted to give us a scholarship or something. But to send people, and I'm sure they're on city time, so it's not only the $1,000, but the city time. So that's all I'm going to say. On the issue of towing, I wasn't questioning whether the tows were legitimate.
Hold on 1 second, though. I think that the chief is coming up, so. I think
everybody thinks it's a responsible thing to do but me. So I accept that.
But we all want to know, what the chief has to say about it.
I'm sure he thinks it's a wonderful thing.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just quickly to emphasize what the city manager said, and I am sensitive to people's time away from the job and the cost of training, I am. That we'll touch on that several times over the course of this bills list. But one of the things that we have found extremely valuable over time is the relationships we establish and maintain many years afterwards from this relationship. People who have been through this system volunteer their time in other ways based on the relationships they strike up with the members of the department that are in those classes. And so it is about establishing long-term relationships that I find extremely valuable, as have my predecessors. Thank you.
Alderman Fisk.
I don't think Alderman Rainey or anyone is criticizing the value or questioning the value of it. I think she's questioning the amount of money we spend and how much of Leadership Evanston is actually dependent on the city's cooperation and help. And so I think if it's possible to approach them and say, for the one attendee a year, if you would underwrite this as a scholarship for the city's cooperation and the incredible cooperation that the city has shown in the past, I think that would be very helpful, especially in these times.
And Alderman Fisk, members of the committee, as I'm standing here, and I apologize, I don't have any specifics in front of me, the $1,000 may be a reduced rate. We'd be happy to get back to you on that. Again, we went from 6 to 2 to 1. I think in an ideal world, always having a member of the police department makes a lot of sense, and then having another staff member who has a lot of community contact to be part of it. I'm happy to go back to the Community Foundation and ask if there's an additional reduction that could be done. I think they look at the City of Evanston's participation as sort of a tentpole, one of a handful of organizations that participate every year in order to help keep the program going. I think that's the other piece that we provide, is by the assurance that there's a half a dozen organizations that every year will be sending someone that assures that the program continues, and they're able to get other organizations that may or may not have staff members that make sense every year to go. So understood. Again, if the council recalls, we had this discussion a year ago where I committed that we would go from 6 to 2 to 1, and again, pending other direction, we'll keep it at 1.
Yes, Alderman Fisk.
Well, I just remember sitting in the audience for years listening to Alderman Rainey bring up this issue over, so it's not just been the past couple of years, it's been the past, 10 years? It's been a long time, and I think she raises a good point, and I think the situation is different now, and hopefully the Evanston Community Foundation will see the value of assisting us.
Okay. And again, I think that it's important that you understand the direction. The training is important. I don't think that folks get overtrained. It's a question of the cost. Take a look at that and let us know before you make any decision.
And on a future bills list, you will see they offer a one-day program, and we sent 2 staff members to that one-day program at my direction. Mr. Swinkowski, our Intergovernmental Relations Coordinator, and Devon Woodard, our Development Officer, who is attending their annual celebration as we speak on the future of the Community Foundation. At my personal expense, Alderman Rainey.
Thank you.
All right, great. Any other questions on the bills list? Alderman Rainey, you started raising the issue of towing.
Yeah, we had $4,400 in towing for North Shore Towing. And I had absolutely no problem with the fact that, they towed cars that were legally parked. That had nothing to do with my question. I was just curious as to what event generated that. And I think mostly the answer is the charges are legitimate and we're responsible for payment. Well, of course we are. I mean, I wasn't challenging that. So I'm going to vote for it tonight, but I would like to know, was this a basketball game, a football game, whatever season it was? What was the result? I doubt that it was just a random all over town towing.
Chief?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Alderman Rainey, in response to your question, this was a multi-month bill, and there were a couple of big ones in there because there were storage fees associated with some of those tolls, but it was not a single event. This is a month bill that we're processing this evening.
I wasn't concerned about any single charge. I was concerned about how many there were, and it appeared as though it had to have been an event. But you're saying no.
No, but I will, to clarify this, I'll be happy to provide the list of
No,
the
please
individual
don't.
tolls.
No.
Okay.
But North Shore should be directed to be more timely in submitting, because it helps us.
I understand, Alderman, and I'm, at this point in time, I'm not ready to blame them solely for this delay.
Okay, just more helpful when. Can I ask one more question?
You can.
All right, I don't know, Paul, from the library, could somebody explain the answer to my question? For people who are listening, every bills period, we get expenses for books from the North Branch and expenses for books from the South Branch. And then once a month, we get the $4,250, whatever it is, $4,520 rent charge for the South Branch. But we know that it's not just books and rent to run the South Branch Library. There's a lot more involved. There's technology, maintenance, gas, electric. I would imagine maybe it's included in the rent. We don't know those things, so I've asked, what does it really cost a month to run the North and South Branch Libraries?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Paul Gottschalk, and I'm the library's Administrative Services Manager, and I sign off on the bills for the North and South Branch. When we developed the budget for the second 6 months of this fiscal year, we followed past precedent and included those expenses that had been traditionally charged to the branches. All personnel costs for the branch staff, including their benefits, were charged there. Let me address some of the specific issues you've raised. Electricity, there's no charge for that at either branch or the main library because of it falls under the franchise agreement.
Really?
Natural gas, heat is included at South Branch as part of the rent. North Branch, it's a charge and a line item that shows up in the North Branch budget. One thing that was identified, and this is true citywide, of a shared city service, are the IT expenses. So the T1 data connections to each branch are actually right now budgeted and charged through the city's IT division. And that is approximately $2,745 for the 6-month period. So that right now is being charged to the city's IT division. Also, there's the expense for phone service, and that's approximately $75 a month per branch based on usage. So that's another $900 that right now is being charged to the city's IT division. Cleaning and maintenance and delivery. We had a part-time staff member who was our driver, and also cleaned the branches and did some other work at the main library. His position was eliminated in this last budget cycle because we anticipated the branches being closed. Our current maintenance staff at the main library is doing the cleaning and maintenance of the branches as needed. And those charges for their time are going to be charged back to the branches directly, so that all expenses at this point, except for those IT and phone expenses, are being charged directly to the branch budget. All supplies, pencils, paper clips, paper, toilet tissue, paper towels are being charged directly to the branch budget and are being funded from that money that was transferred to the general fund from the library board. You also had a question about security at the branches. There's actually no security service at the branches at all. The branch staff respond to any emergencies or security issues that come up directly, the current staff members.
Okay.
So would you say then that, and I know you use the current conditions to generate these numbers, would you say these are comparable numbers to what it costs to run the branches last year? Or
They,
going forward in a fully funded year?
well, compared to last year, actually, this number is less, this budget was less because we reduced the scheduling at the branches 1 day a week from 5 days of service to 4. So we actually eliminated positions from the branch from last year. Otherwise, and we also reduced the materials budget significantly, anticipating the branches would be closed. In our proposed budget for fiscal year 11, we've redistributed the book budget for the branches, and we had originally submitted a budget that had increased the amount of materials budget for the branches, but it didn't change that overall library-wide, library system-wide, because materials move among the 3 locations.
So the amount we pay for books for just the North Branch for 6-month period is $3,200?
That's correct.
And for the South Branch, it's the same?
That's correct.
So 167,100 times 2 would be the annual cost of running the branch libraries.
Accurate.
I'm not sure of that number. I don't have that number with me.
14, carry the 112, carry the 1. It's 334,200, something around there. I mean, all I did was add 87,000 and
And 70,
158,000. Oh, no, I see, and 70,000, okay, I see. All right, I made a mistake,
the
okay.
budget for the first 6 months was actually less than that 158.4.
Okay. Yeah, I see what I did, okay. All right, 158,4, all right.
I believe the budget for the first 6 months was about 149. So it's less than twice this amount.
Have you had any luck in finding another location for the South Branch?
I don't believe there's no active looking for another location for South Branch right now, because that's not the direction the council or the library board have given us. We keep our eyes open. You remember Don Wright. The first direction Don Wright gave me when he was library director was to look for a new location of South Branch, and that was in 1989. So we're always keeping our eyes open, but there's no identified possible location right now.
So will your budget for the next year include the elimination of the South Branch? I mean, because there won't be one?
I don't know. The library,
Talk to the landlord
the
about-
library board's budget included funding for the South Branch at its current location through December 2011.
Is that when the lease, the notice we've given the landlord for the lease?
No, right now the landlord's notice, he understands that, that we will be out February 28th, 2011.
So why does the budget include through the next 6 months?
Well, the library board's intention is to keep the branches at their current location through fiscal year 2011.
So you're disregarding the notice to the landlord that we're vacating, is that correct?
The landlord has not been notified about what the library or the city's intent are after February 28th.
Oh, could the city manager get up here and explain that to me? I thought that we put the landlord on notice that we were exercising our option to cancel the lease.
Unless something Paul said contradicted what I'm about to say in the 10 seconds it took me to walk in the room, my understanding is that the lease at the South Branch currently goes until February 28th, 2011.
That's correct.
And so I'm recommending to the council that we close both branches, and if that's the case, then we will be closed on February 28, 2011. The reality is that it will take us several days to a couple of weeks to get out of the facility. We have talked previously with the property owner, and they've indicated that they would grant a week-to-week, a day-to-day extension if that was something that we had requested, and I don't believe anything's changed with that. So if it takes us 2 weeks to clear the facility out till the middle of March, then we'll pay those 2 weeks and we'll be out. I think Alderman Rainey, in hearing the previous discussion, there's the budget that was submitted by the library board, and there's the budget I'm recommending to you, and those are different budgets. And so the budget I'm recommending to you for the library is basically the cash value of the base level budget this year, which is branches for 6 months, with some adjustments for salary and other things, but by and large, the budget difference is about $150,000. So if the council approves the budget that I've recommended, that those funds will be shifted to the main library at the discretion of the library director, and we'll close the branches on February 28th.
Okay. Thank you, Paul.
I have, before Paul speaks,
Alderman Holmes.
I would like to just get back, you made a statement about the costs that are now being charged to IT, which I think was 27,000 plus, I can't remember the other numbers. And then 900, in addition, 900 for the phones?
The cost of the data lines for both branches for 6 months is $2,745. And then also the cost of the phone service, it's based on usage, so it varies month to
That's
month.
a month, that's per month,
No,
right?
that's for the 6 months.
Oh, for 6 months.
This is for 6 months.
Right. The cost of the internet connection, it's a T1 line,
Okay.
is $228.82 per branch per month.
Okay,
So that's $2,745 for the 6 months. And right now, that's being paid by the Information Technologies Division of the city.
right, and then 900 for the phones, I think you said?
That's correct. Approximately $75 per month per branch for the 6 months.
You would have to add that to the 158.4 in order to get a true cost, right? Is that correct?
That's correct. But I've got a certain amount of money. There are no more city funds being used to support the branches for this second 6 months.
I understand that, but
So
I'm just trying to
I've
get
got
what the true
I'm
cost-
managing to that money.
I understand that the Alderman Rainey had asked what it would cost to run.
Right.
So I'm trying to get to that figure.
I
which is
wasn't
coming-
asking what we were spending right now.
Absolutely.
I was asking just
So-
the big picture.
So Alderman Rainey, you would have to add that onto the
You're right.
158 and double it, and then you'd come over 300,000. So you're in the right ballpark. You said 358, it's a little bit less than that.
Yeah, it is.
Pretty near.
Yep.
Okay. Gonna move on then. Thank you very much, Paul. Any other questions about the bills list, clarification of the answers?
One more second. Mr. Chairman, I know that one of the questions I asked is, what is Holland and Knight doing for us
Yes.
in terms of their federal advocacy? And I see that there's a memo attached. I don't have time to read it. I'm very curious, but perhaps one of these days we could get, I mean, we know what Matt's doing, but what is our consultant doing? I'd be interested in knowing.
Mr. Chair, Alderman Rainey, members of the committee, we'll be making a presentation at your next council meeting, and a representative from Holland and Knight will be present from Washington.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Then, all those in favor of approval of the bills list through October 26, 2010 for the $1,892,448.58, say aye.
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 Okay. Item 831 is a request that we authorize city manager to sign an agreement with District 65 for the sale of rock salt in the amount of $63.09 per ton for the period ranging from November 22nd, 2010 to April 15th, 2011. This includes 10% administrative and handling fee. The city has been selling rock salt to the school districts for many years for purpose of de-icing their driveways, roadways, and parking lots. Can we have a motion?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We have similar requests for item A 3.2. to authorize the city manager to sign an agreement with Evanston School District 202 for the sale of rock salt in the amount of $63.09 per ton for the period ranging from November 22nd, 2010 to April 15, 2011. Can we have a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
A 3.3 is staff recommends approval of an amendment to the agreement for the purchase of natural gas with Centerpoint Energy Services from Downers Grove. The amendment will extend the term of the agreement for up to 6 months from November 1st, 2010 to April 30th, 2011, and establish the purchase price equal to the first of the month index via Chicago City Gate as published by the Natural Gas Index Bid Week survey, plus an administrative fee of ½ cent per therm. This index price is currently substantially lower than the city's current contract price of 62 cents per therm. Can we get a motion?
To approve.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Next item, A3.4, is a request that we approve a sole source agreement with Siemens Building Technologies out of Prospect, Illinois, Mount Prospect, Illinois, for service and upgrade of the building automation system at the main library. The initial cost of the agreement is $30,824 for the 14-month period term beginning November 1st, 2010 through December 31st, 2011. The proposed agreement includes 2 one-year extensions through December 31st, 2013. Each of these extensions will be brought before the City Council for approval, and the terms of this proposed agreement were changed to match the city's new fiscal year. So can we get a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
Questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. A3.5 is a request that we approve first year optional renewal year of the 3-year contract with Citation Management. This is a company that was handling the city's parking ticket management and payment processing function effective January 15, 2010 to January 14, 2011. Estimated annual expenditure of $450,000, which includes the contract amount, postage costs, and pass-through fees, is provided by revenue, a certain account. Okay, the rates are the same as what was established in the original contract executed in January of 2008. Can we get a motion?
Move approval.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? I do have a question as to what our evaluation have been of the services that this company has been providing us. And I know that there have been many questions raised as to whether or not we're getting the effectiveness that we sought, or at least that we expected. So please help us out.
Good evening, Alderman John Baptiste, members of the committee, Rick Voss, parking manager, City of Evanston. Prior to putting this packet together, I have discussed this information with representatives from Duncan Solutions, Mr. Tim Wendler, who stands behind me. And he gave me a pretty accurate report of what we have done year to date or in the past 2 years since the contract has been issued. And briefly, in a brief summary, as a result of the partnership with Duncan, we have realized over $825,000 in additional revenue in the last 2 years compared with the reported revenue from previous parking ticket program, which was with T2 at the time. And they coupled it with the fact that, Alderman Grover asked me this question earlier today about, even though we're down about 11% on our total issuance, we're able to improve our overall clearance rate for citations from a reported 78% when it first started to 84+% as it stands now. So it has worked well. We've worked with Duncan Solutions over the past 2 years to develop other programs to include a parking permit model within. We've increased and developed an extensive boot program that has become very successful, raising from about 30 boots prior a month for immobilization to over 67 to 70 boots per month on an average now through their program. So we have found that it's been very successful. Their equipment, we've had no issues whatsoever. When we've had some minor issues with the handwritten citations through their maintenance program, we've been able to send them out, get them repaired, and back within 2 or 3 weeks. We have extras on hand at no cost to us. So it has worked out extremely well year to date.
Any questions? Okay. Alderman Rainey, then.
No, I was just
Alderman
turning your
Holmes.
lights on.
Oh, okay, Alderman Rainey.
We pay $450,000 for the year to Duncan, right, or to the other name, what's the name? Citation. Is that correct?
Yeah, so that includes the pass-through fees, which...
Well, and I wanted to ask you about what do you mean by pass-through? What are all the costs? What costs do we have?
Our cost is the basic fee, which I believe, and if Tim can correct me if I'm wrong, is about $188,000 a year. Then we add the postage fee, which in the original contract we did not include, and that we had added later.
So you're saying $188,000 is for administration?
The base fee and all the
Okay,
processing of the
citation,
tickets, yes, ma'am.
And
And then postage for those tickets that we add on. And the pass-through fees, most of it is tied to, if I'm not mistaken, is the convenience fee or for people that want to use the web-based payment plan. It's just strictly a pass-throughs to show that transparency, to show that, in fact, that, we're documenting these fees.
what costs other than paying our PEOs do we have for all of this service?
Basically, other than paying the PEOs, it's just our vehicle maintenance, and they do everything. They process our tickets. They give us our rolled tickets for the handwriting. They provide our handwritten tickets for the police department or others. They process. They do our collections. They generate our letters. They set up our adjudication. They set up our letters for adjudication, and they also have an in-house collection, which they use also to call on people that are not paying their bills and try to retrieve that money.
They have, if I get a ticket and I want to appeal it online, who gets that appeal?
Online, it first gets generated through, if you do it online, there's the online system within our website. You enter, you want to appeal. In fact, we just had a case of this last week. The appeal is entered on that date. The next date is reviewed by the administrative law judge. At that time, there's a decision made on the appeal, whether uphold it or give back the funds, and then a letter is sent out. It's all sent out through their system. The letter is generated by them. The appeal is set up, set to the law judge. The law judges enter the database, review, make their decision, enter it, and then the letter of whatever the outcome is, whether the appeal is upheld or they're found to be not in default, is generated by Duncan
Do
Solutions.
you know of any case where an online appeal has been won by the appellant?
I can't answer to that. I'm not a law judge. I don't sit in there, so I really couldn't answer that. And I don't know if Mr. Wendler could either.
Yeah, I don't know.
I just thought maybe anecdotally you would know.
No, ma'am, I do not.
So I would like that, Mr. Chairman, to be a question. Has anyone ever won an appeal online of a parking ticket?
City attorney would, I think adjudication is under
I
your
don't need the
jurisdiction.
answer right now.
No, I'm just saying, adjudication is under his jurisdiction. I'm just confirming that, right?
Members of the committee and Chairman and Alderman, yes, we do have that information accessible. Anecdotally, I can say that there have been appeals that have been granted, but we can access the data and give that to you.
Thank you. All right. Okay. Yes, Alderman Burris.
Yeah, good work on making this better. When Duncan first took over, it was a complete nightmare. I wasn't on council yet, but have held, it's definitely gotten better. Maybe it's because I'm on council. No, but I still get a lot of parking tickets, don't get me wrong. But it seems that the city staff has been working better, but, and I really thank you for being able to do that. Not that it's perfect and we still have issues, but previously, if you put something in the thing outside,
Yes.
yeah, the drop box, you know, it was a crapshoot, whether or not it was going to get processed or not, and then Duncan would send nasty out letters, and then you could hear from people. So it seems to have gotten better, not perfect, but thanks for your efforts in making progress.
Thank you.
Thank you. We all share your, your perspective because we had issues. All right, then for item A3.5, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, A4 is a request that we adopt the proposed ordinance 82-0-10, by which the city council would enact a new Title 8, Chapter 26, entitled Solid Waste Transfer Station Fee. No city funding is required. Viola, the operator of the solid waste transfer station located at 1711 Church Street, Evanston, Illinois, will be required to pay a fee of $2 per ton for all waste delivered to the Church Street station, transfer station. It's for introduction. Can we get a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Alderman Fisk.
Yeah, I had a couple of questions about this. In the memo, it says transfer station fee of $2 per household, and in the ordinance, it says $2 per ton.
It's per ton.
It's per ton.
It's per ton.
Okay. Thanks. And my other question, I emailed Suzette today to talk about who actually dumps at this station. Does Groot dump? Is it limited to Viola? And the answer is that Groot can dump, it sounds like.
Yes, that's correct. Good evening, Chairman and members.
Could you say your
I'm
full
sorry,
name?
Suzette Robinson, Director of Public Works. Any waste hauler that's in the area can dump, with Veolia's permission, can dump and pay the tipping fee, including Groot.
But Groot doesn't, right?
The franchise agreement that we have, Groot picks up the commercial waste. They do, on a regular basis, dump their first dump at the transfer station, and then the second load is taken back to their plant at Elk Grove Village. But they also bring garbage from Chicago to Evanston as well.
Okay, Alderman Fisk.
Yeah, my concern is that by going to a franchise with Groot, that was basically a tax on small business throughout the city. And is this going to end up being another tax on small business? Now, I think Viola, is it Viola? Is that how you? Veolia? Mm-hmm. Okay. They have a large contract, I believe, with the university, isn't my understanding, but not with the city. And how is this $2 per ton going to be transferred on to, passed on to the people who are dumping? I don't want to add another tax to small businesses in the downtown. We're pretty much taxing them out of existence here.
The $2 fee is transferred to the hauler and not to the businesses themselves.
But if it's
So
transferred to Groot, it's going to be passed on to
Well,
the
Groot
city.
can't pass on any fees. They can't tack on any additional fees through the franchise agreement. They're not allowed to by contract. And when they raise their rates, it's in concert with the city's approval based on their contract. So the rates and they're established for the next 6 years in terms of what their increases can be, their allowable increases each year. And they can't add this fee to that.
Okay, so you'll promise me that over 6 years, at the end of the 6 years, you will make sure that this fee isn't raised on the backs of the small business owners.
At the end of it.
Well, Groot is making a business decision. I mean, $2, the tipping fee at Veolia, it varies depending on who's dumping there, and what type of contract relationship Veolia has with the haulers. And Groot is making a business decision now, instead of, driving back to Elk Grove Village and coming back to Evanston or sending a separate truck, that it makes more sense for them to dump here once. But they're not the only hauler that is bringing Chicago garbage to Evanston. So, just so you know that.
So who else is bringing?
Lake Shore also uses Veolia Transfer Station, and they are Loyola University, and then they have a lot of multifamily businesses. Under Groot's residential contract, they have to take the waste to Swank. And the condominium garbage, Flood Brothers occasionally uses Veolia as well, so for the condo garbage. So the only garbage we control disposal for is the residential waste.
Can you talk about the process once all that dumping takes place at Veolia? What then happens?
As a part of the ordinance, they would have to submit to us on a quarterly basis the amount of tons that have passed through the facility, and also remit a check in the amount for $2 times whatever the tonnage that comes through the facility on a quarterly basis.
And where does Veolia ultimately dump all of that garbage?
I'm not really sure what type of arrangements they have in terms of, some of it goes to landfill, some of it is trucked to Wisconsin. So I'm not really sure exactly where the waste in Evanston goes.
All right. Any questions? Yes, Alderman Rainey.
How did you determine that $2 would be the fee?
We looked at some of the existing rates that were around, and some of the higher ones that are not listed were from the south side of town. A lot of the host fees or transfer station fees were established as a result of new transfer stations being established. So upon that development, like Glenview, for example, Swank's transfer station, the village of Glenview also receives a transfer station fee as a result of that. So we looked at, what was reasonable, and that was the number we felt was reasonable, based on the amount of revenue we wanted to generate.
So it was really based on the amount of revenue we wanted to
Well,
generate.
that was part of it, plus, the wear and tear, because we're looking at it more in terms of the impacts. And the impacts on our roadways is more tremendous because we are heavily congested in comparison to Glenview's transfer station, for example, which is, out away from everything.
Well, Glenview.
And housing.
Glenview's transfer fee here is 40 cents per ton.
That's correct. What I'm saying is that they're not adjacent or in a highly congested area. The transfer station fee is out in the middle of the woods. I mean, there's nothing else around it, so.
And what about Plano? Is that the south?
I'm not sure.
Plano is $2.75. What I'm trying to get at is, why $2? Why not $3? I mean,
Well, we want it to be reasonable. We don't want to be the highest, but
I don't know.
and that's.
Then why not $2.75, and we'll be just like Plano? I mean, I'm just trying to get at what was the thinking in determining the $2, other than a bottom line number you wanted to generate?
Nothing other than that in comparison to what the other cities was, to make sure our fee was not too out of line. Similar to the establishment that we used for the yard waste sticker fee. We use that. We tried not to be too expensive.
Okay. Do we know, does the transfer station receive the same amount of tonnage every year? I mean, is there a way to know that?
It's a way to know, yes, what they've done for the last years. They have to report to the IEPA how much garbage they bring every year.
And have they reached, is there a capacity?
Well, because they're transferring, no. So as long as they have relationships along the chain, and so to speak, in terms of where they're trucking it to, that's correct.
what if we ask for $3 or $4? What is, see, when you talk about reasonableness, what is it that, are we saying that we force them out if we charge more? Or can they sue us for charge for, you know, to reduce the fees? What's the story?
Well, I think that when we look at the impacts of what they're doing, we can charge whatever we believe is reasonable. I mean, that's certainly within your purview to raise it to $3 or raise it to $4. But that will indirectly impact some of our businesses. It will impact Northwestern, it'll impact the hospitals, because they're not currently incorporated in the franchise. So if they are bringing their waste to Veolia, then they will get that pass-on fee. That fee will get passed on to them as well.
Because when you talk about impact, impact is not just to the streets. There's some other impacts on the
That's correct,
health
environmental.
of the adjacent neighbors.
Right.
Yes.
So I think that has to be taken into consideration. Alderman Holmes.
Well, I just wanted to ask, any of the other places that you listed on the attachment, are any of those located in the middle of a residential area like ours is? Because that impact seems to me to be the most important one.
No, they're not. Most of them were existing, but understand that Veolia has a permit to operate, and they were grandfathered into the existing situation. So we have to be really careful about how we establish this impact fee. And when we stick to the material, and I might be venturing over into your area, Grant, but when we venture into, if we stick with when we stick to the infrastructure, it's easy for us to identify that. When we talk about some of the environmental impacts from smell, noise, et cetera, that already has been accounted for as a part of the permit, and it's an existing condition. So it's very difficult to go back and you know, I think that they have a better case, and that's why it's not, when I wrote it up, it's based on the infrastructure impact, not the, I guess, intangibles.
Because I don't think it's that intangible, but
I don't
we'll
either.
come back to
I'm
that,
trying to see how
maybe.
can the effect on
Yes,
people.
Alderman Fisk.
Thanks. Is this a permit like Evanston Lumber or some other uses that runs for 25 years and then is reviewed and renewed? Or how long does the permit run for?
It runs until they choose not to comply with the law or shut the facility down. So it will stay. It doesn't have an ending term.
Okay, because I know there's some permits in town that do run, like the Animal Hospital on Davis or Evanston Lumber, that run for 25 years and then are renewed again. I'm surprised this doesn't have a...
No, I mean, every year, if you have issues or concerns with the operation, the IEPA, similar to what occurred when we had the compost site in operation, and the residents filed complaints from smell, noise, et cetera, and it requires the city to be able to respond to that. So Veolia would have to respond, and they have in the past. I believe the health department has addressed some issues with them, as well as the fire department. So we can make them, hold them to a certain set of operation standards within the law, and then, in terms of what's reasonable. And then once they comply or try to mitigate whatever the problem is, then their permit stays in effect. And we have a transfer station permit landscape waste for the leaves that we haul out every year. And so it does not have an expiration date. We do a report every year in terms of how many leaves come in and out to the IEPA, and that's the only reporting requirement that we have.
But if I understand correctly, some of this is beyond meaning the city's control, because I know that neighbors have been instructed to call IPA directly themselves, and they all have them on speed dial. So they are doing that regularly. And, so some of this is beyond the city's control in terms of the permit that they have from the state. Is that not correct?
That's
They don't have
correct.
a permit from us.
No, the permit is from the state. That's correct. And so, but much like with the compost site, they were very aggressive with us in terms of making sure that we comply from the compost aspect of things, based on the complaints that were received. And I mean, the city ultimately made a decision, due to cost and the environmental impacts, to close the compost.
But the city was
facility.
running that, correct?
That's correct.
So
That's
that's a
correct.
difference.
So,
I mean,
yes,
this is
yes.
another private business, and it's not as easy as just making the calls, because this has been going on ever since I've been on the council in terms of neighbors in that area trying to get some action, and I'm sure way before, because the grandfathered in certainly precedes, I think, all of us on, well, maybe not Alderman Rainey, on the council when this was voted on. But I don't know if you were here, Alderman Jean-Baptiste, or not, but I know it was before me.
It's been the same issue, yes. Alderman Fisk?
Suzette, this is expected to generate, what, $320,000 a year?
Yes, yes, roughly. Mm-hmm.
And has there been any thought given to whether $2 will be enough to cause the company to shut down? At what point,
I think that, you mean, will it negatively impact
Right.
them and prevent them from doing business? Is that
Right.
what you're saying?
Right.
Okay. Have they responded? Because I think that this kind of discussion, there's been some ongoing kind of discussion with Veolia about, coexisting with the neighborhood, and I know the previous city manager had discussed different options with them, and to the extent that the city is unable to provide them an alternative location to do business, and the fact that we don't have the authority to be able to close them down, they will continue to operate. But if your question is, will this impact their business negatively? I mean, have they responded to that?
Right.
Is that the question?
Has there been a discussion with them?
No, they have not responded, but they do know that we have been discussing this.
And there's
the
no one
potential.
here
No.
tonight from, okay.
How important is it that this gets passed? And it's for introduction, right? Yeah, it's just for introduction.
That's correct. It has budget implications, so for January 1, but it certainly could be
Okay.
held.
All right, then what I would like to do is to hold it in committee to further consider the tonnage costs, because the issue of $2 per ton, having taken into account the impact, the street on our streets is one thing. There's some other impacts on the community, and I'm not sure, you're saying that it's assumed, but I'm not sure whether or not it has been taken into account like that.
Well, it was more than an assumption. When we approached this, the establishment of the fee, we did have a conversation with other people in the industry in terms of what's expected. We looked at the rationale that others have in terms of a host fee and what they were charging and what they were charging for. And that's how we came up with the number. Our number being higher than most others in this area is because of the impacts. I mean, our entire roadway system is impacted from Howard Street. Their trucks and then their semi-trucks that are running from the dump, out Gulf, and I mean even across Bridge Street on a regular basis. So that's what it was based on. But we can certainly do a little more research on the number and see if there's any movement in terms of.
I see the city manager
And
has-
Alderman, we have some questions.
Yes. Okay, Alderman Burrus and Alderman Rainey. Alderman Rainey?
I just wanted to say that I think there's absolutely no reason not to introduce this.
Yeah,
We can have a full-blown discussion at our next council meeting or
Yes.
return it back here. But you know, if nothing else, I'd like to get the $2, but I'd like to get $3. And Veolia is not going to go broke because of this. You know, their activity in mergers and acquisition and all over the world is pretty spectacular, and I don't think this is going to kill them. But I don't.
Yeah.
I think we do have to justify the charge.
Yeah, and that's what I mean, that we continue the discussion on the fees. So yes, we can introduce it and
That was
and
my-
continue the discussion. All right.
I would like
So-
to continue talking about it.
Yes, Alderman Holmes.
But I just don't want the charges or the fee to be misunderstood as a way of the city is
Being
in
punitive.
bed with Viola in terms of this, and that we're not pursuing the neighbors' concern about all of the issues and eventually finding a place for them.
And maybe one of the ways that we can address that next time it comes up, we could give an update, city manager, as to what we've been doing, what discussions we've been having, and what concerns have been raised, and what Veolia might be doing in response to these concerns. Can we do that?
Yes, and Alderman Jean-Baptiste, Alderman Holmes, members of the committee, there are neighborhood residents meeting, I believe, Wednesday evening to talk about this. I know that I'm planning on attending. Just a word about this fee and those efforts. I think the fee generally is tied to impacts, and I think that it's very appropriate after a very long time of having this transfer station here to go back and get some funding for that. I think it's prudent. My suggestion to the council is it's prudent to go with a fee that is aggressive, but not is so aggressive that it singles us out to bring other actions by either customers that use this facility or by the haulers themselves. I think that's an important first step to get the fee on the books. I think there are lots of things that we can be doing to aggressively manage the other issue, and that is the site specific. So I think we have to look at what are the impacts of this particular site and what are the impacts beyond the site. I think this fee does a great job of beginning to address those impacts beyond the site, and I think the work that we're doing regarding the site is a related but separate issue, and would be happy to come back to the committee at your next meeting when this is up for adoption to give an update then.
Thank you.
But there is just one, is there a term for this fee? I mean, is it for a year or until we change it?
Till we change it.
Because there's absolutely no reference to that in here.
Most of our fees, unless there is a time, I mean, it's I think goes the other way normally. We set a fee, it's there forever unless it's not going to be there forever. And I would not recommend setting fees if we can avoid it that aren't going to be there for a while.
All right. Then all those in favor of introduction say aye.
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 Okay, good. All right. Thank you very much, City Manager. And if you can include in the packet the next time, whatever the report may be on what's been going on, the discussion, exactly what you would be giving us orally, if you could have it in writing.
Certainly.
As well. Thank you. All right. Next item on the agenda is item A5, which is a request that City Council approve the ordinance 83-0-10, which authorizes that various vehicles and equipment owned by the city can be publicly offered for sale through public auction with Auburnoff Auction Service. These vehicles and equipment are presently assigned to various division departments within the city of Evanston. This is for introduction. Can we get a motion?
Motion to approve?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Item A6.
Chairman, what's a deer gator?
Deer Gate. Something related to John Deere. Can we have, yeah.
Whatever it is in poor condition.
With 1,900 hours. I just don't know. 2002.
Sounds painful.
2002.
I want one.
Alderman Jean-Baptiste, members of the committee, Ricky Voss, parking manager. A Gator is a four-wheel drive, basically a small vehicle which transports a little equipment around the parking garages. That's exactly what it is. And it is in very poor condition, and that's why we have to auction it off. It's just strictly a small ATV all-terrain vehicle that we use for support.
Alderman Rainey wants one.
She has a little computer, so she wants one. All right, thank you very much. Thank you.
It's mechanical though, right? It's not a trailer or anything.
It's mechanical, it's a
No,
vehicle.
it's mechanical. It's a small engine in it, and the engine is gone. It's blown.
Okay. Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Item A6 is a request that we adopt proposed ordinance 84-0-10 by which the City Council would amend Section 10-11-5, Schedule VC of the City Code to establish a three-way stop at Greenwood Street and Gray Avenue.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. A7 is a request to approve ordinance 86-0-10, amending Title 10, quote, motor vehicles and traffic, by adding to Section 10, quote, schedule, Schedule 8, parking prohibited at all times, A, on Chicago Avenue East Side from Howard to the CTA tracks, and removing from Schedule 12, quote, parking meter zones, C, from the same location. This is for introduction. Can we get a motion? All those in favor of introduction say aye.
Aye.
Items for discussion, what do we have? Nothing. We have no items for the discussion, no communications. Can we get a motion to adjourn? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, yes, by the way, P&D will begin at 7:15. 7:15. Thank you.